Okay, let's begin shiur number 3 here in the Tzurba Hilchot volume number 17. Shiur number 3, we discuss Kiddush, and today we start discussing issues of Suda Shabbos and food on Shabbos. Halachos of Oneg Shabbos, halachos of Shodesh, halachos of Lechem Mishnah, all these topics that will be discussed today, even sleeping on Shabbos and learning on Shabbos, all ways to enjoy our Shabbos. So we'll be starting with this third shiur, which is on page 105. I think in the last, there was a little mix-up with some of the packets might be off by a page. The earlier booklet had a different pagination, off by 2 pages, but either way, the numbers of the sources were the same. So now we're on page 105, but it's source number 1. We're going to start with the Rambam relating to Oneg Shabbos and Kavod Shabbos and related issues. So here we go again, the Lax family edition of the set of Tzurba Hilchot, and this is the Paris family volume number 17. And b'schus all the Torah that we're going to learn together, we should be zocha to Yeshuos and Nachamos and Geulos b'mheira v'yameinu. So we know there is a the Rambam tells us in the beginning of Hilchos Shabbos Perek Lamed, the beginning of the Perek that talks about the Aseis, the Rambam says, Arba Dvarim Nemru b'Shabbos. There are 4 mitzvahs that are spoken about on Shabbos, that are referred to on Shabbos. In Tanakh, Shnayim and Torah, V'Shnayim and Divrei Seforim. 2 that are Daraisa, 2 that are Darabanan. V'Heim Mefurash and Aidei Neviim. And they are explained by the prophets, by the Neviim. Shebet Torah Zachar V'Shamar. The ones that are Daraisa are Zachar. We spoke about Kiddush. That Zachar's Yom Shabbos Zakatsho. And Shamar. Shamar are all the Losa says that we will get into. V'Shin is Parsho Aidei Neviim. And those that are explained by the prophets, by the Neviim, Kavod v'Oneg. Kavod Shabbos and Oneg Shabbos. So again, the Vilna Gaon is said to have been machalik, and he was machalik in Hilchos Yantif, between Kavod and Oneg. Kavod is everything you do before Shabbos. We've mentioned this gra, while Oneg is everything that we do on Shabbos. But not everyone is holds of that specific chilik. But this is either way. Kavod and Oneg are learned from the pasuk in Yeshayahu and Perek Nun Ches. How do you remember which Perek? Menucha, Nach, you rest on Shabbos. Menucha, the pasuk about resting, and everything about Shabbos is learned out from that pasuk in Yeshayahu. Im Tashav, the pasuk says in source number 2. Im Tashav Shabbos Raglecha, Asos Chafatzecha. You have to do things differently on Shabbos and stop doing your own chafatzim. V'karasa Shabbos oneg, you shall call Shabbos oneg, enjoyment. L'kdosh Hashem michubad. V'kibadato me'asos d'rachecha, and shall give it kavod. Give it kavod. Our speech should be different on Shabbos. Our dress should be different on Shabbos. What we're involved in should be different on Shabbos, right? And that is the source for kavod and oneg. So enjoying ourselves on Shabbos is a very special mitzvah, midivrei Kabbalah, right? That's it's a mitzvah that's learned out from a pasuk in Navi. How do you enjoy Shabbos? The Gemara asked that question in Shabbos Kuf Yud Ches in source number 3. B'mem ma'ango Rav Yehuda Breder of Shmuel Bar Shelas Mishpei the Rav Amar B'tafshel Shel Tardin, radishes, dugim gedolim, big fish, whatever one likes to eat. Rashi Shumin, right, the head of garlic. Rav Chia Barashi Amar Rav Afilu Davar Muad, even if it's something small. One doesn't have so much means to buy a lot, even a small thing. V'Kavod Shabbos haso is made l'Kavod Shabbos hareza oneg. That's oneg Shabbos. Even a little bit, even a little mushed fish, as is described in the Gemara. So again, remember, in Kavod Shabbos might even start during the week, every day of the week. I'm going to say this for Shabbos, but enjoying it on Shabbos is the fulfillment of Oneg Shabbos. So how many meals does one have to eat on Shabbos? So we know that's a Gemara in Masechah Shabbos Kuf Yud Zayin, 3 meals. Interesting, that's not according to everyone. Right? Not according to everyone. The Gemara says it's based on a pasuk in Parshas B'Shalach, where it says the word Hayom 3 times in the pasuk, and we learn from there 3 meals. That's the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yud Zayin in source number 4. Tanu Rabbanan, Kamas Udos Chayav Adam Lechel B'Shabbos. How many meals? Shalosh. That is what we hold. Rabbi Chidka Amar Arba. Rabbi Chidka says 4. 4 meals on Shabbos. Amar Rabbi Yochanan v'shnayim ekodecha darshu. And both opinions darshan from the same pasuk. What do you mean? Vayomer Moshe echlu hayom ki Shabbos hayom lashem halotim hayom lo timseu basadeh. Eat the meals today. Eat the meals today. Today is Shabbos. Today you won't find the mun in the field. So it says the word hayom 3 times. Rabbi Chidka savar hani tlasa hayom labar me'urta. Rabbi Chidka says 3 meals during the day of Shabbos. The night of Shabbos, that's not included. Rabbanan Savri Bahadi D'Urta. Rabbanan say no, including the one at night. So 3 meals altogether. Oh, 3 meals altogether. So some people have Sudash Rabbi Chidka. I remember my father always waking up from his nap on Shabbos afternoon, having a rugalach, having some little piece of cake with some tea, and saying, oh, Rabbi Chidka. So that's the 4th meal. Even as we'll talk about, that one should have bread for the 3rd meal, as we'll get to a little bit later. Rabbi Chidka Suda does not need bread, even if one is makpid or tries lechadchila. But we paskin like the Rabbanan against Rabbi Chidka. Is this a din daraisa, a din Rabbanan? Is learned that from a pasuk, right? Shalosh hayoms. So the Sefer the Yereim, Rabbi Lezer Metz, Talmud of Rabbeinu Tam, he says in Siman Sadi Beis, yeah, it's a din daraisa, unbelievable. Shalosh seudos, tziva yotzreinu beparshas vahi b'shalach sheyochlu b'nei Yisrael as gimel seudos b'Shabbos. 3 times. 3 times hayom, 3 meals. B'chol mili lo nafik yidei chavsa b'sudat Shabbos kim benama. Bread. To be namidi de mechayev alei berachas hamazon. Bread, 3 meals. V'tayim adahukra. Demafkinan mine gimel sudas. The pasuk that you learn now 3 meals from is talking about bread. Ki lechem asher nasa Hashem lechem la'achla. The man is called bread there, and therefore one requires 3 meals, a din da'araisa. Some poskim hold like this sheet of the Rishonim. The Lavush says it, and the Aruch HaShulchan is a fan. The Aruch HaShulchan is been Reish Tzadi Aleph. The Aruch HaShulchan, who is a strong believer in bread, as we'll see for Shodesh. Va'alavush kasav she'em min Torah kidasif tlasa yom v'yem efshar she'en mamish min Torah, even if it's not mamish midaraisa, mikol makom vade mitakanas Moshe Rabbeinu heim, goes a long way back from the takana of Moshe Rabbeinu, shekin kibo misinai. We definitely got this mitzvah from our Sinai when Hashem told us, and Moshe told us about Shabbos. V'hei meramzim neged gimel avos and neged tornavim ksuvim. There's a lot of 3s in Judaism, so this is up there too. Ubusha she'item lam amon, nitin lam al gimel sudos. V'dvarim gedolim v'noraim tluyim begimel sudos elu. There are some major and intense symbols and effects in Shamayim based on these 3 meals. Mavur bizarre by Kamakomos. One should take it very seriously. But most Rishon and most Mefarshim, the Kolbo in Surah 77, assume that it's a nasmachta, it's a din derabanan that one has to have 3 meals. But again, it's a din, it's a halacha that we have to have. So all the meals on Shabbos, the Rambam tells us in Lecha Shabbos in source number 8, Perek Lamed, chayiv anam lecha shalosh sudos b'Shabbos. One has to have 3 meals on Shabbos: echad arvis ve'echad shachris va'achas b'mincha. Morning, and afternoon. One has to be careful with these 3 meals. You can't have less. And even if somebody is supported by tzedakah and he begs, he has to make sure to have 3 meals. If somebody is physically ill, or he likes to fast, okay, physically ill, pater mishalosh seudos. So then one is pater. The Rambam says it to be kovea seuda on wine. And have Lecha Mishnah v'chevi yavim tovim. The Rambam says this now, so we'll mention it, but we'll come up to more sources soon. The Rambam says one has to be kovea seuda ala yayin. Does that mean one has to make kiddush at Shodesh? In some birchonim, in some benchers, one sees a kiddush, and there are some, I heard some yekis, some that recite a kiddush at the beginning of Shalosh. The Shulchan Aruch does not quote kiddush. The Shulchan Aruch says beferish ein sarech. One doesn't need to make kiddush at Shalosh. One doesn't. Usually the Shulchan Aruch tells you what you have to do. Here the Shulchan Aruch says what you don't have to do. One doesn't have to be kovea seuda. But the controversy is the tour. The Rambam, as we just saw, says one has to be kovea seuda al hayayin. The Rambam also says elsewhere in Perach Chavtes, you have to make kiddush twice. You have to make Kiddush Friday night. You have to make Kiddush Shabbos morning, as we've discussed in the past shiurim. So is he saying there's a 3rd Kiddush? So the Tur seems to understand it that way, because the Tur in Siman Reish Sadi Aleph, not in front of you, quotes this Rambam, and then says, Vadoni Avi Arash, my father, lo hayam avarech al yayin kodem, wouldn't make Kiddush on wine before the meal. It sounds like he's contrasting. The Rambam says, Kovei Asud al yayin. My father did not make Kiddush before the meal, Mishum de Iskesh Yom Alayla, just like Kiddush by day, by night is only 1 Kiddush, so too by day is also only only one Kiddush. So it's a little. That's how the Torah understands the Rambam. The Kesef Mishnah there and the Beis Yosef say that's not the right reading of the Rambam. The Rambam says only 2 Kiddushes. You have to be koveh su'ud alayayin, meaning sometimes during the meal have some wine, but it is not a din of Kiddush. And that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Ein tzarach lekadish b'suda shlishus. No. Lechem Mishnah, yes. Sorach leftzol shteki karos, like the Rambam says, but not Kiddush. So the Mishnah Berurah quotes, the Shulchan Aruch does not quote this Rambam, but the Mishnah Berurah quotes, it's a nice idea to have some wine by Kiddush to be yotze the sheets of the Rambam. If somebody hates wine, then you don't have to have it, right? It's only if you enjoy it, and it is oneg. That's what the Piskei Tshuva says in source number 9. Bismanenu shein regilin likvo sudas chashuvas alayayin. Often you go out to dinner. Some people love to order wine, but a lot of people don't get wine. They just have a soda. So if it's not your Oneg Shabbos to have wine, says the Piskei Tshuvas, Ein chovo lishtos dafka yain betoch hasuda el b'shar mashkos hachaviv malav, whatever you like to drink. So that's in terms of 3 meals. By the way, men and women equal. The Shulchan Aruch says, Nashim chayavos b'shuda shlishis. Right? There's no difference between men and women regarding any of the mitzvahs aseh of Shabbos, Kiddush and Lechem Mishnah and Shodesh. All of them, they're all equal. Havdalah is better going to be a machlokes, which we'll discuss in future shiurim. But this is what the Piskei Tshuva says, and the Shulchan Aruch says that women are included. Fine, 3 meals. When does one fulfill these meals? So if you look in that Rambam that we just read in source number 8, it sounds like in the 3 time zones, right? Night, morning, and afternoon, right? Shabbos, achas arvis, v'achas shachris, v'achas mincha, right? 3 different times. So that's definitely the lechatchila. If for some reason one wasn't able to eat a meal at night, one slept through the whole night, one was sick, whatever it is, one was ill, one was very nauseous. So Tosfos quotes, and the poskim quote this: you have 3 meals during the day. You can make it up. If you can. The Aruch HaShulchan says, though, definitely the Chadchila, one needs to have the 3 meals in the 3 different time zones, which means the second meal before Chatzos. And that's crucial, because sometimes if somebody's in a minyan that finishes after Chatzos, the meal is going to be later. So the Aruch HaShulchan says, based on the Rambam that we just read, source number 11, page number 110, V'hinei be'emes, l'fi aniyas daiti, tzricha liyosu d'shniya, rak kodem chatzos, before chatzos, shaharei kamosha suda shlishis, tzricha liyos rak acher chatzos, just like suda shlishis, the 3rd meal has to be dafka in the afternoon, v'atam nireh, why? Tekiva, da gimel sudas yalfinim mitlas hayom, the 3 hayoms, that's the makar in the Gemara, for the 3 meals, tzarech liyos everyone has his own time zone on Shabbos. The Friday night meal, the Shabbos morning meal, the Shabbos afternoon meal. The Aruch HaShulchan is very strong relating to this. And that's L'chadchila. That's L'chadchila. The Tshuvas Ar Letzion, Rabbi Tzion Abishal also says this L'chadchila. Sarach Liso Tzu the Shnia Kodem Chatzos Hayon. Mashma also Midivrei HaZohar. But again, if it can't be, let's say somebody's busy davening and they're not going to get to it. Many people eat it after chatzos, so then one can eat it afterwards. The Pri Megadim says in source 13, as long as you're not fasting. There's a separate issur of fasting, so somebody should take a drink of water or coffee before davening, then you're not fasting. And once you're not fasting, even if you have both meals after chatzos, it is okay. And this Pri Megadim is really the basis for most of Am Yisrael who eat their second meal after chatzos. Interesting, the Aruch HaShulchan might be a lishitaso here. The Aruch HaShulchan here says he's very strong in terms of having the Shalosh in 3 different times, night, morning, and afternoon. The Aruch HaShulchan in Hilchas Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos has a very mechudashita. Right? We talk about what he's supposed to do when Erev Pesach is on Shabbos. What do you do about Shalosh? You have to have 2 meals by 9:30 in the morning. So most say you daven early, you split the meal in half. The Aruch HaShulchan says no problem. Why isn't it a problem? It must be there's no chiyuv of Shalosh in that situation. Just like, and he compares it, just like on Yom Kippur, when Shabbos, Yom Kippur, there's no Shalosh. Why? There's the mitzvah of Inui, you can't eat. So too here, because it's impossible. You have to, the Aruch HaShulchan, as we'll see, is very strong in terms of eating bread at Shalosh, and you can't have matzah, you can't have chametz in the afternoon, and you have to eat the Shalosh in the afternoon, because Lishitaso, says the Aruch HaShulchan, each meal of Shabbos gets his own time zone. So because it's impossible in this situation to eat what you're supposed to eat at the time you're supposed to eat it, it must be there is no chiyuv. Must be there is no chiyuv. That's an amazing chiddush of the Aruch HaShulchan in Taf Mem Daled. Aruch Chaim Taf Mem Daled Sif Vav. He says, Bal Karchach lo nitztavinu klal al gimel shudos kivan diyefshar midi dahavi b'yom kippurim shachal b'Shabbos v'hu adin Shabbos erev Pesach le'inyan suda shlishis diafilu im no madisar achilas matzah v'chulu even those darabanan l'maisa you can't. Amazing. So that's all the shitasa. The Aruch HaShulchan that says you have to have Shalosh is dafka in the afternoon. You have to have in the morning meal before chatzos. And the Aruch HaShulchan that we'll see is very strongly supportive of the shita that you have to have bread. So it's impossible on that situation of erev Pesach shechalias b'Shabbos. Okay, what about bread? So in general, the first two meals, one for sure, one is not yotzei without bread. Says the Shulchan Aruch in Reish Ayin Daled in source number 14, Suda Zu Vishal Shachris, the night meal, the morning meal, Efshar La Sosa below pas. One has to have bread, but one should also do their best to have bread at Shalosh, which we'll get to soon. But in Shalosh, he talks about how much bread you have to have. So the Shulchan Aruch says, Kabetza, Yehzar Ma'od, be very careful. L'kayim Suda Shlishis. Be very careful. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't have to say this by too many halachas, but he knows that people aren't so zahir. That's why he has to say zahir. Sometimes we say, "Oh, I'm full, so don't eat dessert by lunch." Right? And it's amazing that right after Havdalah, very often, everybody has a huge appetite to have malava malka and to have a couple of slices of pizza. No, it's a mentality. All we have to have is a slice of challah. Right? So one has to be very careful, the Shulchan Aruch says. Yeh zohir, v'yave mufsaveh, even if it's satiated, yochal l'kayim osa b'kebetza. Just have a beitza, have an egg size. The Maggid Avram says maybe a little more than a beitza. That makes it a non-arai, a kavua meal. But the Mishnah Brura and others say that really it's a kazayis. Really, kazayis is what is needed. That's the Mishnah Brura and Tafresh Lametez and Sukkah actually. But that's where he says b'di eved dai b'kazayis, and that's what the Yalkut Yosef says as well. Interesting. We're talking about bread, and one needs bread for the first two meals. What about if somebody is gluten free? What about if somebody's gluten free and they can't have gluten? They have a disease. They have a celiac. What are they supposed to do? So the Shulchan Aruch says that if food is mazik a person, so then they're pater, they're ones. The Shulchan Aruch and Aruch Chaim, Reish Peches, source 19, Yesh Omrim, Sha'adam shemazik lo ha'achila, if a person it's mazik, da'az oneg ulo shelo lecha lo yochal. Oneg Shabbos is if he doesn't eat. So if it's mazikin, then he can't eat. So what about gluten free? So again, if one could get gluten free bread, how do you have that? 4 out of the 5 grains have gluten. If one could get oats, because oats, unless it's contaminated from cross grains, but if one could get one that oats are naturally gluten free, so one should use that, and that's hamotzi, and that's perfect. But if one can't, are there other options? Well, at least we mentioned in Kiddush B'Mokum Suda issues, some poskim say, you have this on page 114, having a revius of wine, or grape juice, a whole revius, that could be considered a Suda. But Rav Rimon writes, in source 20, he says, Madino shacholat celiac, biyachas lachovat achilas lechem, so lachaladeus, right? One. If it's going to be mazik a person, this is not pikuach nefesh. This is not one of those docha Shabbos mitzvahs. Ukashem shemisha achila bechlal mitzah eretz also pater mishalosh shudos, shalosh sudos. If it's mazik, kach misha achilas lachem mitzah eretz also pater, and therefore a chol tziliak is pater. But one could get oats if it is possible, and then they will be able to fulfill the mitzvah bishlei musa. So this is in terms of eating, but we alluded to before that there's an isser of fasting. There's an isser of fasting. By the way, regarding the celiac, if somebody just chooses, they want to lose some weight, so they go on a diet, that's not the same as somebody who's dangerous and it's mazik to them. So to have most cases, not all, when I speak to their doctors, but most cases, to have a little bit of bread just on Shabbos, that would be able to be allowed, even if one is on a strict diet. If even that, so then one has to speak to their doctor. And see what one can do. Again, try to get the oats challah if possible. Okay, what about the issue of fasting? There's an issue of fasting on Shabbos. One is not allowed to be in distress. One is not allowed to have pain. The Rambam says in Hilchot Shabbos, in that same parak, remember, the last 2 prakim are about the essays. Parak Lamed Halacha Yud Beis, says the Rambam, source 21, Asr lehis anos velizok, Ula hischanin, it's also to fast and to cry out. That's in terms of and bakashas. Ula vakish rachmin b'Shabbos. Afilu b'tzar b'natzaris. Right, one is not allowed to. Obviously, if there's a danger, if there's pikuach nefesh, then you do, and that's why Bisman Azer right now, all of Klal Yisrael is davening extra every day of the week, including on Shabbos. But in general, the first part, asur his anos. It's asur to fast. Asur to fast. How much is asur to fast? The whole day for sure. But the Yerushalmi says, and we try to be makbid for this too. Yerushalmi says even until chatzos. The Yerushalmi says in Talis, Rabacha Riavo, Rabbi Shem Rabbi Yosef Chanina, Azlas Anos Ache Shos b'Shabbos. Right, even half a day. That's why, even if one is not so as makbid on having the second meal before chatzos, we're not makbid for that Rambam and the Aruch HaShulchan, but you can't fast. You can't fast, so one has to make sure to just take a little drink in the morning. Is that Isser Tainus and Isser Daraisa, Isser Darabanan? The Bir Halacha discusses this in source 23. Asur lezanos v'isur tainus b'Shabbos yesh deos beposkim imu rak midivrei Kabbalah midachsiv v'karasa l'Shabbos Oneg. Is it midirabanan, strong midirabanan based on a pasuk in Navi? Ohu midaraisa midachsiv v'chlu hayom. The pasuk that says you have to eat 3 meals, included in that is not only a mitzvah to eat 3 meals, but an isur not to eat anything. The nira pashut the tainus adal shos l'chuli amad dirabanan. Fasting a half a day is for sure only dirabanan. The only possibility of fasting the whole day being daraisa is, obviously, like I just said, it is a whole day. And even if the Ramah says, even if one has a good excuse, I'm learning, I'm davening, doesn't matter. There's an Isser Tainus. Right? The Gemara Shulchan Aruch says, Ashel Atzanos b'Shabbos at Sheishos, Afilu Lomeid Umispalo Aser. And therefore, if one knows that they're going to shul and it's going to be a long davening and there's a simcha, whatever it is, one needs to take drink before they go to shul. Take a drink, and then you're okay. You're okay. Where the minhag olav is we make it like that prima gadim, that we could have the second meal after chatzos. But in terms of the fasting, we have to be makbid about it, and therefore one needs to eat or drink something before they go to shul. The Mishnah Berurah does note if I fast l'shem fasting, that's usher, even for an hour. Right, you can't do that. Remember the Gemara in Masechet Pesachim, the machlokas Tanam Chatzi Lashem Chatzi Lechem. But there are 3 exceptions to the rule that Kule Alma Be'inan Lachem, Shavuos and Purim. Right, Purim and Shabbos. Shavuos, Purim, and Shabbos. So Shabbos is one of them. One is not allowed to fast on that day. What happens if somebody has a bad dream? That's one of the exceptions to the rule. The Shulchan Aruch says you have a bad dream, maybe you have to fast that day. To fast that day, the Shulchan Aruch discusses it. But the Alkid Yosef says that we try not to do that for fasting. Haruach Halom Rabbalel Shabbos, says the Alkid Yosef in source 26. If somebody has a bad dream on Friday night, Ein Lo Lisanos b'Shabbos. Right? One should not fast on Shabbos. Afilum HaChalom Echad Mishlosh HaChalom Roim. Even if it's one of the bad dreams. What happens? What should he do? Yaktish says Yom HaShabbos Ulu Limud Torah V'Kriyas Tehillim K'fi Kocho. Right? One should dedicate it to learning and to saying Tehillim, V'yimna Misichas Chulin, and to be Mekadesh their pet. If he's really, really upset, he really wants to fast, okay, then he's going to have to fast another day for fasting on Shabbos. For that sin, so to speak. But either way, generally one is not allowed to fast on Shabbos. Good. What about crying? There's a discussion about crying. This is not in your booklet. What about crying on Shabbos? So the Shulchan Aruch also says, unless it's a cry that's going to make you feel good. If it's a cry that's going to make you feel good, like Rabbi Akiva's crying when he read Shir Hashirim, that's okay, right? The Taz, the Mefarshim talk about different types of crying, but if it's a cathartic cry, then we say it's okay. If it's just a bechi type of avelus type of cry, we try to prevent it if possible, but obviously we're all human. Okay, moving right along. Continue with the halachas of Lechem Mishnah. Lechem Mishnah, we learned that you have to have 3 sudos, 3 or 4, but we paskin 3. What do you have to have at those meals? Bread. But there's a concept of Lechem Mishnah based on the man. The Gemara tells us in Shabbos Kuf Yud Zayin. Now we're in source 27. Amar Rabbi Abba b'Shabbos Chayav Adam lefsoa al shtei kikaros tichsiv Lechem Mishnah. A double portion fell in Parshas B'Shalach. Amar Rav Ashi, but then Rav Ashi, even before we see the continuation for a moment, the Mefarshim say that really this is for sure by the first 2 meals. Lechatchila, the poskim say it's best to have Lechem Mishnah by Shalosh as well, but there's a little more flexibility regarding that meal. The Maggid Mishnah says, any meal, calls manshu soed. One should have Lechem Mishnah, but the Ramah writes in Arachayim in Siman Sadi Aleph, Vim soed harbi pamim b'Shabbos, tzorach lekol suda beis kikaros, right, to remember the mon, the double portion that fell on Erev Shabbos, ulefachos lo yelo besuda shlishas pachos b'kikar echad shalim, at least one whole one by Shalosh Shodesh. Umizeh pashad minag lahakel lefsoa besuda shlishas rak kikar echad shalim. Some of the minag don't have only one by Shalosh Shodesh, but it's best to have two. So we have two for Lechem Mishnah. Which Challahs are cut? So it depends, or how many Challahs are cut. So this is really depends how you read a Gemara. The Gemara tells us in the continuation of Shabbos Kuf Yud Zayin, back in source 27, Amar Ravashi, Chazina le'lo Rav Kahana, I saw Rav Kahana, Donaka tarti ubatzachada. He held two and he cut one. He held two Challahs and he cut one of them. Amar liktu ksiv. It says liktu, they gathered two, but they didn't eat both portions. They ate one portion. So you cut one, and then you have the line, Reb Zera have a batza akula sherusa. Rabbi Zera was batza akula sherusa. What does that mean? Batza akula sherusa. Rashi says it means he cut a nice big piece. He cut a nice piece. Meaning, not only he cut one, but he cut a nice piece so that it could be for the people during the meal. The Gemara continues, Ravashi, how could you cut a big piece? Doesn't it look like you're ravenous? That's not derech eretz. Amar le, Ravashi answers, Kivan to call Yom lo avid. The whole week he didn't cut big pieces like this. V'ha'idna hu took avid. Only today, lo mechsi krav tanusa. So it doesn't look like he's ravenous in that way. That's how Rashi reads the Gemara. The Rashba has a very different reading of what Batza Akula Sherusa means. What does that mean? So Rashba says, Batza Akula Sherusa means he cut both Challahs. He cut both Challahs. And then the same Shakla V'tarya. Doesn't it appear ravenous? No, he only did this on Shabbos. He cut both Challahs. That's the Rashba. Nirali de Batza Al Kola Kikaros Kamar. Right, both. Since the previous Shita said, Nakatarti Ubatza Chada, Reb Zera argues and says, no, cut both Challahs and not just one Challah. The Shulchan Aruch passes like Rashi. Rashi cut one of the Challahs. Botzei al shtei kikar shlemos she'oches shteim biyado botzei atachtona. You cut the bottom one on Friday night. Al pi Kabbalah, you cut the bottom one. The Shulchan Aruch says, mitzvah levsoa b'Shabbos prusa gedola shetasbik lo l'kol hasuda. And you cut a big piece, enough for the whole meal. That is like Shitas Rashi. The Mishnah Berurah quotes from the Shlah Kadosh and from the Marshal that if you could do like the Rashba is good. To cut both Challahs, and that you might have seen some people that have a big Challah and a pita to cut both Challahs during the when one makes hamotzi. A couple of points to mention regarding this. First of all, Api Kabbalah, Friday night the Shulchan Aruch quotes to cut the bottom one, and by the other meals to cut the top one. There is a halachic problem with this, right? The Bach notes in source 34. But one second, if I'm holding both challahs and I have to cut the bottom one, so I'm passing over the top challah. Isn't that a problem of ein mavirin al mitzvahs? And Kabbalah is never doche nigle. There's a halach of ein mavir al mitzvahs. So how is it that one can be mavir and cut the bottom challah? So his son-in-law, the son-in-law of the Bach answers, I have a solution. Hold the bottom challah a little closer to you, so there's no mavirin. V'anina hati ba'atzmi, says the Taz, k'shemavarchan ala tachtona, meiniach ani ota karov ela yoser, me'al yona, you leave it a little, bring it a little closer, nimsa shopeach v'gani betchila betachtona, you first hit the bottom one, ve'ein kan ma'ar ala mitzvahs klal, there's no ma'ar ala mitzvahs, because you have the lower one closer to you, you cut the bottom one al pi Kabbalah, you cut the top one in the morning. That is what the Taz that's what the Taz says, no problem. There are other answers to ein ma'avir ala mitzvahs. The Aruch HaShulchan says even if you don't do that, ein ma'avir ala mitzvahs means if you want both of them, you can't pass by one of them. If you're about to use both, so then you shouldn't pass by. Right? The tzitzis, talis and tfilin in the morning. You shouldn't pick up your tfilin if you know you're going to have to put on the talis, because then you're ma'avir ala mitzvahs. You want to put on the talis first, so then you should touch the talis first. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, yesh misha omer, dein ma'avir ala mitzvahs lo sha'ach l'kshirot alaso shtehen, v'lo kisha'oseh rak achas mehen, kumo shekosvo atosvus. Okay, so maybe here you only going to want to cut one challah, so maybe the whole principle doesn't apply. But the Mishnah Berurah quotes this Bach and the Taz. They should hold the bottom one a little closer situation, right? That's the Shmir Shabbos. Also summarizes Balel Shabbos Yaniach Shnei Lechamim Zeh Al Gabi Zeh, one on top of another. Aval Yakpid Lahaniach as a Tachton Karav Elav Elyon. Bring the lower one a little closer. Kach Shacharei Bracha Yachzik Betachton V'Yivsa, so that even after the bracha, the closer one will be cut. On Yom Shabbos or on Leil Yantif, you cut the Elyon. This is all api Kabbalah. There is a Vilna Gaon. Before that, the Rav Avadia says maybe there are some that always cut the top one. Whatever you do is okay. It's not ma'akev. There is a Vilna Gaon. The Gra says that there's never a stira between nigla and nistar. If you think there is, then we're either misunderstanding the nigla or misunderstanding the nistar. So here the problem is the Shari Tshuva in our Siman here in Reis Aleph quotes the Arizal that you should have 12 Challahs. 12 Challahs. So we have 2 Challahs. I mean 12 Challahs, 2 Challahs. Isn't that a stira? 12 Challahs, 2 Challahs. So the Gra says, no. Really, it says Yud Beis, it said in the Arizal, Yud Beis Ches with a little line, with a little smidgik, as it's called. And really it should mean Yud Beis Chatichos, or Yud Beis Chatzah in 12 halves. Because if you hold like the Rashba, and you cut both Challahs at each meal has 2 Challahs, you cut them into half as 4, 12 Chatichos. So it's 2 Challahs at each meal, you cut both of them like the Rashba. So the Gra says, Nigla and Nistar are all together, and Shalom al Yisrael. Beautiful Vilna Gaon. A couple of other halachas of Lechem Mishnah. Interesting, the Orlat Tzion, Rabbi Tzion Abishal discusses, could you use a frozen challah for Lechem Mishnah? Sometimes you have one, and you forgot to take out another one, you want to take it from the freezer. So he thinks, yeah, Mutar L'tzarif Lechem Kafud Lechem Mishnah, it's okay. It's okay. Shlomo Zalman said maybe only if, sometimes we take it out, we use it, we put it back in the freezer. Shlomo Zalman wasn't so happy about that. He said if it's going to defrost during the meal, so it already is nechshav like bread. The Shmir Shabbos quotes for Shlomo Zalman in source number 40. Shamati Gaon Shlomo Zalman Orbach. The itachein. It's possible. Shebishasha lechem kasha ke'even. If the lechem is so hard like a stone, velo roi la'achila einu yachol etztarif lechem mishnah. Maybe it can't be mitztarif, but if it's going to stay out, achem b'daito laharach b'sudaso ache roi lamachal, it's going to stay out after the chashav karoseach. Maybe it's like considered boiling hot. You have to wait till it cools off. So nowadays you could really put it on the hot plate and make it ready even sooner. But it seems to be a machlokes. But again, a number of B'tzin Abishal and others would say it's bread. It's bread. It's useful bread. It's not muksa, right? And therefore lechora it would be okay. A couple of other issues that the Piskei Teshuvos brings up about Lechem Mishnah is, what if one doesn't have Lechem Mishnah? One doesn't have Lechem Mishnah. Can one use Pas haba b'kisnin? So the Piskei Teshuvos says, obviously it's not best. It's not best to pas haba b'kisnin, some type of mizonos that if you would be kovei asud and eat enough of, then you would have to wash. But it's not pas. You're supposed to use pas. So if you have bread, you're supposed to use bread, challah, matzah. But if not, you could use it as a second. Lechem halacha l'maisa, says the Piskei Teshuvos. Im ein lo lechem gomor, if you don't have full lechem, the kovea sudas aminim mizonos, vadi yesh lo l'vso al shnayim shleimim. Right, you're using mina mizonos, but you should have used 2 whatever you're using. 2 cakes. V'im birshuso chalas lechem echas bilvad. If you have 1 challah, 1 lechem, yitzarif min mizonos, then it can be mitzarif the possible bekisnin to be the second one. Shei roy lekvo alav suda. V'anachon shochein yochal besudaso gam mei hamini mizonos shetzirif lechem mishnah. You should be kovei suda on it. You should use it so it won't be a fake. It will be real kvi suda in that regard. What if you don't have holes? First of all, does that have to be perfectly whole? Sometimes you're baking challah, and when we separate it, a little piece comes off on the edge. So the poskim say, and the Piskei Teshuvos quotes this, as long as it looks whole, you don't have to take out a magnifying glass and see the edge. If it looks whole, and that's what you have, then it is whole. That's what the Piskei Teshuvos says. Bevadeh lechatchila, in source 42 now, on page 123. Bevadeh lechatchila yish lahader shiyu shnei achalos shleimim. Betachlis uprudim zemizeh. They should be whole, they should be shalem, hider mitzvah. Amnam chisaron kal b'chala, a very little chisaron, a little bit off. Obematza asher lo nikar kolkach, that it's not nikar a break. Ulaene b'nei adam nire v'nikra shalem. To other people, it looks whole, looks like shalem. Meikar the dina sharper dummy. It's okay. It's okay. We should try to have it whole, perfectly whole. But if not, as long as it looks whole, it's okay. In the olden days, not really so now. Olden days, a couple of decades ago, we used to have bakeries with little papers on it to say what the name of the bakery was. So when you take off that sticker, so then the challah is not whole anymore because some of the challah comes off. So first of all, Misad Hilchas Borer, the Shmir Shabbos and others say, maybe leave the sticker on until after Hamotzi, because you don't want to take it off. It won't be whole. But if you just take off the sticker with leaving the challah as best as you can, maybe that's an issue of borer. So what you should do is leave it on until after the bracha, and then take it off with a piece of the challah, which won't make it whole, but it'll be after Hamotzi. So generally, in terms of removing that. What if one doesn't have a hole? So the poskim say you could use two of something to remember a Lechem Mishnah. You only have sliced challah, sliced bread, so one could use those. There's an interesting Meshav Davar. The Nitziv and the Tshuva says, what if you have one challah? You have one challah. Is it better to make a bracha? Misad Hilchos bracha is shalim is better, but Misad Lechem Mishnah, maybe you should cut it in half and then have two. Is two more important than shalim in this regard? So the Nitziv and the Meshav Davar and the Shuvas and Simin Chaf Aleph, he says it depends how it was balafanecha, right? If you have a chal in front of you and it's one, you can't cut it. That's not doable. But if it's not in front of you, I'll read it to you. This is not in your sefer. Depends how the lechem came in front of you. Im ba lechem lefanenu shalem or afilu parus im nefaris v'niktan mikamosa mikri chaser avagavdim betchila yabal lefanenu lechem katan kazeh harakari lechem shapir avakivan shenifras lo mikri lechem avalim ba parus lefanenu. If you got two slices that were brought in front of you, so that's your two. You shouldn't cut it. He connects this to why we do yachat so early in the Seder. Because we want to make it balafanai like a broken piece. Especially according to the Rambam, that there's only two matzahs and not three matzahs, but that's why we do it early. That's the context of the Nitziv in that shuva. Okay, what else can we talk about? We spoke about the three meals. We talk about Lechem Mishnah. There is an ikiyim to have special food on Shabbos. Everything that you like. The Rambam tells us in Hilchos Shabbos. Now we're on page 125. Ezel Oneg, the Rambam. Shomer Chachamim Sorach Letakin Tafshel Shamein Biyoser Umashke Mavusam. Have good meat. Have good drink. La Shabbos Hakol Lefim Mono Shel Adam. Right, we're supposed to enjoy ourselves. Right, we're the only religion like this. We're Makadesh L'Chomer. Right, what is remember the Gemara that I just mentioned earlier? The three exceptions to the rule of Chatzi Lashem v'Chatzi Lachem. One of them was Shabbos. We mentioned the other one is Shavuos. Why is Shavuos an exception? That everybody agrees you have to have Lechem. Everybody agrees you're not allowed to fast and daven all day on Shavuos. You have to have physical enjoyment too. Why? The Gemara says, Yom Shenitna Bo Torah L'Yisrael. So the day that we got the Torah. And one might think, the day that we got the Torah, so we should dafka, maybe that should be a day of learning. That's we should have a party? Dafka, physical? Yeah, the point is because we got the Torah. And our life is about being Makadesh. We're not Malachim. Remember, the Malachim wanted the Torah, but they didn't get it. Right, Moshe Rabbeinu says it's not shaykh to you. Lo sirsach, lo sinaf, lo signav. He goes through all the Aseres Adibros because Torah was given to us, and therefore Shabbos is about enjoying ourselves physically, but obviously in a spiritual way. The Rambam continues: whoever's marbe in expenses of Shabbos and delicious foods, harei ze meshubach. That is praiseworthy. And the Shulchan Aruch says, "Afilu misha tzorach la'acherim." Even if we rely on others, if I have a little bit myself, I'm supposed to make it special. What are you supposed to have? So whatever you like. The Mishnah Berurah says in Reish Ben Beis, beginning of Hilchos Shabbos, if you like fish, meat, tov li zar shelo yifchos mishnei tafshilin, gam tov sheyocha b'chol suda migimel sudas dagim. Have fish if you like fish. If you don't like fish, then don't have fish. There are others that say that maybe even outside of the meals. There's a Gemara Maseches Menachos. Right? Shabbos is a challenging in one regard. Mea brachas. One's supposed to make mea brachas b'chol yom, 100 blessings, and on a regular weekday we don't have a problem. We have a Shmona Esrei that's 19 brachas, 19 times 3, that already takes care of most of them. But Shabbos, you have many less brachas. So, the Gemara says that there were some that tried to eat a lot of snacks. Right, the Gemara Menachos Mem Gimel. You have it in source 48. Tanya. Hayir Meir Omer. Chayav Adam Levarach Meir Brachas B'chol Yom. One should try to make 100 brachas every day. Shnei Emar V'Yatol Yisrael Ma Hashem Lokecha Shom Yimach. Ma Al Tikri Ma Elame'a. Rabbi Chia Bereder of Avia B'Shabsa U'B'Yomei Tavei. Rabbi Chia, the son of Rav Avia, on Shabbos and Yantif. Tarachu Mamli Lahu Bis Parmiki umigdei. Right, he always made a special effort to make brachas on spices and sweet fruit because he wanted to make sure to get mea brachas. So again, during the meal, between the meals, it's a good idea. And the Shulchan Aruch quotes this, right? That yarbe beperus umagadim in ereach de lahashla minya mea brachas. That one should try to be mashla mea brachas in this regard. When we talk about eating. special on Shabbos, there is a halacha that not everybody is aware of. If I have a choice to whether to have something special during the day or at night, Friday night or Shabbos day, the halacha is Kavod Yom is kodem l'Kavod Laila. Kavod Yom, the Gemara in Pesachim tells us, Kufay, Kavod Yom is kodem l'Kavod Laila in terms of expenses, and therefore one should be careful to have special foods. Maybe this is where Challah came from. Challah dafka, not just because it tastes better the next morning, but because it is left over till the next morning, and that's when we eat it because we want to have something special. Right? The Mishnah Berurah quotes, Tov yoser she'anichem, if you have mine megadim, letzorach sudas hayom, u'b'sever yam shel shlomo karei tagar, the yam shel shlomo got very upset on those who were not nizar, v'yadarabba, they're mosif on Friday night. So 2 points. Number one, if there's something that tastes better straight out of the oven, and it's not going to taste good for Shabbos day, okay, what can you do? You have to have it Friday night. Some things taste better straight, fresh. So that's not a violation of Kavod Yom Yosem Kodem L'Kavod Laila. But the Yam Shel Shlomo says, if you look in the Yam Shel Shlomo, he says, from when I learned this halacha, I decided no more fish on Friday night. He only had fish Shabbos day. He must have liked fish, so he only had it during the day. I think it's L'Shita, so the Yam Shel Shlomo Nuchas Rosh Hashanah says, you shouldn't eat, right, the Shulchan Aruch says on Rosh Hashanah, it's Yom Adin, so you should be you have to have a Suda, but you shouldn't be marbe and go overboard with the Suda. So he says, I don't have fish on Rosh Hashanah. So it's L'Shita, so he didn't have it on Friday night. He wanted to save it for Shabbos morning, and also regarding Rosh Hashanah. But the Aruch HaShulchan again explains, why Me'ikar Hadin? Why Me'ikar Hadin? The daytime we should have more kavod, right? Number one, you're maybe hungrier, right? Friday, you might have eaten during the day. So Friday nights, it's not, you don't have such a taiva, but Shabbos day, you didn't eat. And number two, he says in the Mikdash, to be Mikdash, haise ikra kedusha ani keres biyom, shekrivu bo carbon musaf, v'lo balayla, shloisa shum avoda shel Shabbos, right? And therefore, in the Mikdash, that's the daytime, right? That's when the ikr of the carbon musaf took place, and that's why our kavod is parallel to that. What about other enjoyable activities on Shabbos? So first of all, what about Talmud Torah? Talmud Torah. There's an amazing Yerushalmi. The Meiri quotes this Yerushalmi in Shabbos Kuf Yud Ches, and in his Akdama to Shas, you have it there in source number 53. Mitzvahs Oneg Shabbos Gadol Ad Mod. How are you ma'anig Shabbos? The Yerushalmi says, B'meh ma'ango. How are you ma'anig Shabbos? Mar Amar B'Sheino, Mar Amar B'Talmud Torah. One says by sleeping. One says by learning. Says it sleeping, is it learning? V'lo pligi, says the Gemara, no stira. Kan b'Talmud, kan b'Balabayis. It depends if you're a Talmud Chacham. If you're a balabayas, a balabas. And the Pashup Shot, the Meiri quotes his Rebbeim, Upirshu barabosai, Shatalmud ma'algin b'Talmud Torah. A Talmud Chacham who loves learning should be learning extra on Shabbos to be ma'anig. V'balabayis b'sheina, and the balabayas is one who is not in learning and he's involved in other things, so he should sleep extra on Shabbos. Right? That's kan b'Talmud, kan b'balabayas, kan b'Talmud. Says the Meiri the opposite. Says the Meiri, kan b'Talmud. Talmud, balabas, it's the opposite. Shabbos has to be different than when you did the whole week. Somebody who learns the whole week, he's a Talmud Chacham, he's in Osek and Torah the whole week. Mekayim b'Shabbos Oneg Shena. He has to have a little break on Shabbos. Relax more on Shabbos. He can sleep more on Shabbos. The one who's learned the whole week. Avobalabai doesn't mean he has to sleep the whole Shabbos, but he should enjoy himself. Avolabai is shemisase kol yimosa kol be'asakav. But Abalabai is who is the whole week busy with his business. Roy lo lisasing ma'at b'Shabbos b'Talmud Torah derech Oneg. He should learn extra on Shabbos because that's when he has. That's when he has. And interesting, this is quoted in the Ramah. The Ramah in Orach Chaim and Reis Adi Beis and Hilchot Shabbos, he quotes this. He quotes the Meiri way. Upal and Bali Batem, Shina Moskim Matorkle Me Shavua, Yasku Yoser Batar B'Shabbos B'Tamani Chachamim, Oskim Matorkle Me Shavua, right? To be Yosegin more, right? Because also Shabbos has to be different. Shabbos has to be different. And the Mishnah Berurah talks about this, that Shabbos is a day of learning. Amra Torah, the Mishnah Berurah quotes the Medrash in source 55. Amra Torah Levnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbona Shalom, K'shi Kansu Yisrael La'aretz, when Bnei Yisrael go into Eretz Yisrael, right, we're not in the midbar anymore, just learning. Zeratz L'Karmo, Zeratz L'Sadeyu. One runs to his vineyard, one runs to his field. V'ani Matei Alai, what am I going to do? Shabbos complains to Hashem. Amar La Yesh Li Zug, Shani Mezavik Lecha, I have a pair, I have somebody to be Mezavik, V'Shabbos Shmo, Shem B'Telin Mi Malachtam, Shabbos is... But I have a pair that they're not doing work. Right? They could be in the Osek. So we are Shabbos as Zivuk. We are Shabbos as Zivuk. There's another medrash that says Sunday as Monday, Tuesday as Wednesday, Thursday as Friday. Shabbos, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Am Yisrael. And the Iker is, the Mishnah Berurah says, the Iker should be halacha. Lahoros Halach Hilchot Shabbos v'aser v'amuter gam lahamshach levashom ba'agada. But then he says also inspiration. Hamadrichem es adam lirat shamayim. Something that inspires, whether it's knowledge of halacha or inspiration. And we know this from Vayakel. Vayakel Moshe. The Medrash says that was the first Shabbos afternoon shiur Moshe Rabbeinu gave. Amar Gadosh Baruch Hu Moshe asei lecha kilos gedolos v'drosh lefneim barabim hilchos Shabbos. So again, the importance of learning Torah. The Biskei Tshuvos quotes, "V'yom HaShabbos hu yom muchan mezuman lilmobo." There's a special skula. It's part of the Neshama Yisera. Neshama Yisera. The Shibud Kubetz is also in Beitza, beginning of the second parak, says this is the Neshama Yisera. And he even quotes, "V'gadol hamifal anase me'esek haTorah b'yom HaShabbos elef pa'amim." The Biskei Tshuvos says what you learn on Shabbos could have 1,000 times more of a shaping. Yoser nanase me'esek haTorah shel yimosachol. And therefore, Hashem gets tremendous nachas when we gather together on Shabbos. Rav Malamed also in the Penini Halacha, everybody talks about this. The Mefarshim, the Mishnah Berurah quotes, and also the other Mefarshim on the page talk about being mechadesh on Shabbos. Right after our Shabbos, our Neshama Yisrael goes back to Shemayim, and we're asked, "Nu, tell me a chiddush." So to be mechadesh something, and if we can't be mechadesh something, at least learn something new. Learn something new. Know something better. Know something better. Whatever it is, the Mishnah Berurah quotes, and the later Achronim. To learn something new or to learn something deeper. Enter the Shulchan Aruch in Yoredeya and Hilchos Malamde and talk about the Malamde Tinokos in the days when they used to have school every single day of the year, except for maybe Tisha B'Av and Erev Yom Kippur. Should he teach new stuff or Chazara on Shabbos? Which is more enjoyable? Which is more painful? So the Shulchan Aruch, the Biskei Tshuvos discuss. Maybe something new is more exciting, or maybe something new is harder because you have to break your head and you can't review it. So that's an interesting discussion. What about sleeping? That's the other half of what we just spoke about. That's b'meh ma'ango. So sleep definitely, as we know, Shabbos. Some people say sheina b'Shabbos tainug. The Ramah says in source 58, Rei Sadi, one could have the Shina Sarayim ki Oneg hulo. But that does not mean to sleep the whole day. Right, one has to be Maver Sedra, one has to do what one can to be Koveya, the Limud, and then sleep also. Mikol Makom says the Mishnah Berurah, Lo Yirba Bo Yoser Midai, one shouldn't have so much sleep. Shlo Yevienu Lidei Bittul Torah. Shafilu Tamidei Chachamim, Shalom Nikolai B'Shavua, even the Tamidei Chachamim, right, doesn't mean that they just sleep the whole time, right? One has to do what they can to be able to enjoy. Okay. Shalosh Sudash Lishi, last topic that we're going to talk about here, relating to food-wise and the messages of the three hayoms that we said before. So we know we call Sudash Shlishit the third meal, but some people call it Shalosh, which is Shalosh Su'udos, 3 meals. Some Achronim say, why is it called 3 meals? It's the third meal. What do you mean Sudash Shlishit? Why Shalosh Su'udos? Because maybe this meal is Megala on all 3 meals. The first meal, maybe I was hungry. Friday night I come home and I eat. Shabbos day I'm hungry. I eat. Shalosh we're not hungry for. But we don't eat it because we're hungry. We eat it Lekavod Hashem, Lekavod Shabbos, and that's why if I eat Shalosh, it's Megala on the other meals as well, right? Let's talk about first when. When is Shalosh eaten? So Mincha time. Tosas of Shabbos Kuf Yirches b'Mincha. B'Mincha talks about the context. There is a totally different context. If one is saving possession, saving food from a burning house on Shabbos, how much you're allowed to save? So towards the end of Shabbos, Mincha time, you're allowed to save enough for 1 meal. 1 meal, because that's what's left. So you see, Shalosh is for Mincha time. When's the earliest to eat Shalosh? The Shulchan Aruch quotes, Mincha Gedola. Zmanam sheyagia zmanam mincha dainu misheishos v'mechso lamala. V'im asa kodem lochein lokia mitzvah suda shleishes. If I do it earlier, I wasn't Yosei Shalosh. Right? It has to be in the afternoon. There is that's the earliest time. The earliest time. You can't if you can have a busy. If you're going to have a busy, it's a winter Shabbos, I'll have 2 meals at night and 1 in the morning. No, you can't do that. We spoke earlier about if I could have the morning meal in the afternoon. Okay. The Mishnah Berurah quotes, you have it here, what we said before, it's good to have wine during the meal. That's based on that Rambam, Kovei Su'uda al Hayayin, but not to make Kiddush. But as we saw before, one should have Lechem Mishnah, even bread. But by this meal, there are other days in the Rishon. In the first 2 meals, there's no flexibility. One needs bread. But by this one, the Ran quotes, the Shiltei Giborim quote, the Ran quotes, Ikanami, there are those that say, the Mashlam Buhu Bepeir B'nei Targima, one could use other types of foods, whether it's fruit, whether it's mizonos. What does B'nei Targima mean? The Rosh says, mizonos, Machal Jasim Echameshas Haminim, Zeh Chashav Yoser Mi Basar V'Gvina. That's more chashav than meat and cheese. Lamaisa, the Shulchan Aruch quotes 4 opinions. Shulchan Aruch says, 65. Shulchan Aruch says, Sarach lasos b'pas. You need bread. You need bread. V'yesh omrim she'yachol lasos b'chol ma'achol. Ha'asui me'echad me'chameshes minei dagan. Some say, mizonos. V'yesh omrim she'yachol lasos b'dvarim she'malaftem me'amapas. Kabasa v'dagim. Some say, meat and fish. V'yesh omrim afilu b'perus. Yachol lasos. 4 opinions. Bread, mizonos, meat and fish, fruit. Says the Shulchan Aruch, in case you didn't hear, V'svara Rishona Iker. The Svar Rishona, the first opinion, bread. Bread, shetzorach lasos b'pas, elem kenu sobeya bioser. Unless you're totally stuffed, which we said before. That's not my fault that I'm totally stuffed. I should not have eaten dessert earlier. Right? I can't blame halacha, so we have to leave room. Right? The Shulchan Aruch quotes, Chachamim barosho, that we think about what Shodesh is coming, especially in the winter months, and I should leave room. So there are 4 opinions, but clearly the Shulchan Aruch says bread. The Ramah here doesn't argue. If you look in the Aruch HaShulchan, we alluded to this before, Asir Litenes Hadin, the Aruch HaShulchan, who always defends the minhagim of Klal Yisrael. Asir Litenes Hadin, those who don't eat Shalosh and don't take it seriously. Unless there's an Oneg, so there's a total Oneg, so you don't have bread. Right, or somebody is sick, something. So then the Pesach Shuvas obviously quotes. Then we don't mechayev in the case of ones. Interesting. What's not here? There are 4 opinions. There's not a 5th opinion here. What about learning? You ever hear of that? Some people say, you can learn instead of Shalosh. Right? That's nowhere in Hilchos Shabbos. Where is that quoted? The Magen Avram in Hilchos Pesach. In Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos, he quotes that from the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. The Zohar says that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai used to learn instead of Shalosh. So first of all, the poskim don't quote that in Hilchos Shabbos. That's only quoted in Hilchos Erev Pesach Shechalias B'Shabbos, where you have the impossible situation of eating Shalosh. So in that situation, okay, if you have to have bread in the afternoon and you can't, then you can have matzah, so maybe there. But it's not quoted here. Number 2, it's Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. He didn't do half the mitzvahs. He was terasu umnaso. And if you do his kulas, you got to do his chumras. Okay, generally we don't rely on that. Sometimes you have shuls that have a big shiur between Mincha and Ma'ariv every week. Because maybe the rabbi feels that's the only time that people would learn the whole week, so you have to have it. They won't come to a shiur before Mincha. So, L'Shem Talmud Torah. But it should be in the shul announcements every week. Eat Shalosh before you come. People have a choice whether they listen or not. But people should know that they're not Yodsei Shalosh according to what we paskin, not Nosei with learning. You want to say Mizonos, any of the other opinions? There are 4 opinions in Shulchan Aruch. So the 3 of them are b'di'evet. One of them is lacharchila. But at least they're b'di'evet. Learning is not even there. So really one should not rely on that in terms of Shalosh. The Shevet HaLevi Rav Rosner in Chelik Aleph in source 67 discusses why the 3rd meal is different. The first 2 meals are a din b'suda. The 3rd meal is a din b'kavod hayom. So that's why it's more flexible. And that's why, again, because there are other opinions, if you forget ritzei, you don't repeat benching. But again, lecharchila, definitely one is supposed to eat bread. And the Shmir Shabbos quotes, based on the poskim, one's supposed to have a mincha first. One's supposed to have a mincha before Shalosh. Noagim lispalel Shabbos kihilchasa. Noagim lispalel tfilas mincha. One should daven mincha first. The Shmir Shabbos says that the minhag is to daven mincha first. We should daven mincha first. Umikol makom im kashel alechosu l'shlishas acharei tfilas mincha. If it's hard, then you can eat it earlier. There is a sheet of Rabbeinu Tam that's quoted in Bali Atosfos. The Ramah quotes it, but it's not something that we really are makbid for. Rabbeinu Tam says it's usher to eat Shalosh late in the day, because that's when the neshamas go back to Gehenim, and that's why we see the kadin. We discussed that a few weeks ago in the shiur. But either we don't pass like Rabbeinu Tam, we pass that it's a mitzvah to eat Shalosh late in the day. And as we said before, women are also obligated in this mitzvah. We should all be makbid about Shalosh. It's it's megala, as we said before. It's megala on all the meals that it was l'shem shamayim. Having a wonderful, wonderful week.